Mississippi on the move. Let's go.
Deep in the delta where the willows grow, in the soil stained by the blood of my ancestors. Punch bowl voices call out to my soul for justice. The wicked will reap what they've sown. Spirit of Aziz is back on the rise. Soldiers in the delta kept it alive. Time to stand up, take our place in the sun. Understand the time and what must be done.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi.
Gotta make a move and take control. Have something we can call our own. So shine your light, help the people see that now is the time for us to be free. And if you waiting on the pie in the sky, you better wake up fast. They told you a lie, cause big fields await the wide awake man. Elijah's got the master plan.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Injustice, we've had enough. All of our divisions we're breaking up. Destiny has been calling us. The spirit of the Most High is guiding us.
See, the time is now. What you waiting on? Quit shooting your brothers. Put your gun down. Come on. They got a cage waiting for you if you keep that up. Early graves coming to you. From that, can't raise you up. Now, Sister Ida B and Fannie Lou, check them out and you'll know what to do. But if you really want your enemy to be alarmed, read the final call. Follow Farrakhan.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the
And assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you, and welcome to another edition of the Mississippi on the Move podcast. I am your brother Abdul Shahid Muhammad.
And I'm your brother Kenneth Muhammad.
And we are actually live on location. We are in the city of Memphis, Tennessee, and we are in attendance at a very, very special program tonight. We're live, mobile, on location, and we're attending a documentary and panel discussion on a documentary that I watched earlier today, Brother Kenneth. It's entitled Redeemable Son. It's a story of a juvenile lifer in Tennessee. And that lifer is a young man. Well, he was a younger man, but he's still a young man relatively, by the name of Quinton Sanders. And we're here at Shady Grove Presbyterian Church as a sanctuary filled with people. We're off to the side in a little cubby hole. We're going to have some of the participants on the panel to come before us before the evening gets away from us. And Brother Kenneth, before I go any further, let me start right in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. We bear witness to the oneness of God, the oneness of his prophets, and the oneness of the messages revealed through them. We are spiritually mature people. We don't argue over the names by which God is known. We just call him by the name Allah, and that's not to exclude any other name by which the divine creator is known. We greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. Brother Kenneth, man, what about tonight, man? What you think?
I think this is something that is long overdue. I don't know. I don't like the way my mic sounds in my ear.
I don't either, brother.
So let's make sure we get that right, because every word is important, especially at this event. I don't want to waste a lot of time, but when I was invited to the event, my schedule was as such that I didn't know I was going to be able to make it. Quinton Sanders and myself, we go a long ways back, and his story, while it's getting, that sounds a lot better, while it is getting the publicity now that it deserves, he is,
yes,
I want to say, the face of a problem that is going on in the Tennessee Department of Corrections. And I was fortunate enough to work with some of the groups that are here, and the thing that, Allah puts you in the right place at the right time, and they're doing a wonderful job trying to bring to light a serious problem that I would love for everyone to just take a moment and just to think what it would be like to be 15 years old, a child, wake up in a prison hospital, go through the process, be bound over as an adult, even though we all know that you have to be 18 to buy cigarettes. You can't vote until you're a certain age. 15, you can't do anything. You can't even get a driver's license. Yet here in Tennessee, they bind over nearly 77% of juveniles. And here in Shelby County, 100% of those that are bound over are African American.
Yes.
And this is not an accident. So Quinton Sanders, and I spoke with his mother about a week ago, and I said, Miss Betty, I said, I'm gonna make it. And then I was watching the documentary again, and it just started weighing on me, and I sent it to you.
Yes.
And then I said, hey, we got to get here.
Yes,
because
sir.
the people here are doing a yeoman's work. But sadly, unless you have a celebrity attach themselves, the Johnny Depps, of that type with the West Memphis 3, these stories don't get the traction it deserves. And once you, and we're going to send out the documentary. The name of the documentary is Redeemable Son.
Yes.
And when you just look at it, the circumstances, of course, was tragic, but we have to ask ourselves, our children, 15 years old, who make a mistake, who err, even though it ends in the loss of life, are they irredeemable? Are they to the degree where you can lock them up and throw away the key?
Yes,
and I want to say that we have to really, really find our humanity with these particular issues. So I'm glad that we're free enough, Brother Shaheed, that our podcast, we control the platform and we can get this word out to all of our people. And, hopefully while the night is going on, can give you more and more background, because I am intimately close to Brother Quinton, and a lot of the facts and circumstances, I am privy to because of our relationship. I haven't done time together. And so when I'm not giving you something that I read in a book or heard about, something that I lived through and experienced with this young man. So I can offer a perspective that, nobody in this building can offer. And that young man that came in at 15, now he's 42 going on 43, is not the same individual that, made that error all those years ago.
Yes, sir. And I'm so glad you're here, brother, because I hope people paying attention to the fact that you have a perspective on this issue that's unique, and no one else can give the kind of perspective that one can give who lived it for the time that you were with the brother. And strangely enough, I'm kind of, I have an indirect link to this, in that I understand the environment. I was looking at the documentary, brother, and you told me before you sent me the link. You said, man, he grew up in the same hood you grew up in.
Yes, sir.
So when I looked at it, brother, it hit home. It hit hard. And I went back through the Rolodex of my memories of living in what was then called Chizita Gardens.
Yes, sir.
And it was the kind of environment, brother. And my mother was fortunate to get us and my siblings out. And we moved really just down the street into a house instead of an apartment. And I remember the harshness of the environment. I remember police cars coming in, roughing us up for nothing. I remember as a juvenile doing the things that I did. We used to throw rocks at police cars. Cause
we did too, brother. We did too.
We used to hide right down there by the Harbor House, right there on Elsie Road, man. And we got in trouble for it. We got caught. We hit some man's car one night. But, man, I just, in a flood of emotions, just hit me, man. I was like, because I lost 3 brothers. My youngest brother was killed violently, gunshot to the head. My oldest brother was beaten up and died from his injuries. And my second oldest brother died of years of drug use. And all of us grew up, well, my youngest brother didn't. We had a different father. But that environment, and I consider myself very, very, very fortunate. Myself and one of my third oldest brothers made it out. And we're the last 2. My 2 sisters, my oldest sister died of cancer. And there's a high incident of cancer in that neighborhood because
exactly.
We're right by the Army Depot.
Yes, sir.
And Agent Orange was dumped over there. My father died of cancer. So, man, it's been, and when I went through that in my mind, Brother Kenneth, that's why I sent you that text, man. I had to get up and leave my desk for a minute, to step out. Because, you kind of block those things to some degree, and I didn't realize it until I was watching the footage of Chizita Gardens. I knew every cut.
Yes, sir.
Every cut. We used to flip on a dirty mattress in the hood, like my sister say in her music.
Yes.
But, Brother Kenneth, thank you for this idea or the suggestion, brother, to get mobile, because we have the ability to get mobile. Brother Kenneth has introduced me to some people that are on the team that is helping to bring light to this. I was reading the caption on this, Brother Kenneth. It said, children in the state of Tennessee can be sentenced to 60 years to a 60-year life sentence, with the minimum sentence being 51 years.
Yes, sir.
Which is the hardest sentence for children in the country.
Yes, Tennessee is leading the way in that. And the thing is, we have to understand, and I was speaking with Sister Dawn Harrington, Executive Director of Free Hearts, and hopefully she'll be able to come on. She does a bang-up job, her and her team that goes and what they call participatory defense. And they are advocates, and I mean real boots-on-the-ground advocates, going to Nashville, traveling all over the state, and they're challenging the lawmakers to set this right. If I may, just kind of give a little background, because you spoke of the environment. Wednesday, I was fortunate enough and blessed, and it was a blessing to do a Zoom class for juvenile court. And because of the pandemic, we can't go back in physically. But I used to do work down there volunteering with Brother Derek, Big Chuck. But long story short, they have, with all of those juveniles in 2 different facilities, you got juvenile court, you got jail east, and they have 1 counselor. And so, I said, well, brother, I'll do what I can to, help you out. But anyway, I taught a class and took questions and realized that, you're talking to children, and we have to understand that environment shapes heredity. So let us ask ourselves the environment that most of those that are locked up in juvenile court and jail east for whatever crime, they grew up in. We can't minimize that, because images, words, conduct and activity shape and mold you. And many of those that I listened to and took their questions, they have no reality outside of the neighborhood. That's all they see. And it is really, they grow up in war zones. And all of these things affect your decision making, affect the people you hang out with, and it affects everything. So fast forward now, you were 15 in Memphis, Tennessee, Shelby County, under Amy Wyrick, and we have a new DA now, and he's here.
Right.
And maybe we can get him on Mississippi on a move and let us see, because we got together and put him in office, and sometimes people tell you what you want to hear to get what they want. Right. But we need results. I'm going to say this. When I was sentenced to life in 1993, the life sentence had evolved into 25 years with the possibility of parole. It started out here in Tennessee, years ago at 13, then 17, and then 25. Stayed at 25 for a while, but when you go back and look at history, which is best qualified to reward our research, Joe Biden, who was the Senator of Delaware, got out in front when sponsored a crime bill. Now, we had the brother, I won't say brother, the individual in Texas, to do the lion's share of the work, but it was Joe Biden's bill. He the one who came up with the language super predator. And he's the one that set the stage for this tough on crime. And all of these are dog whistles for putting people of color in place. During the Nixon administration, they used the terminology law and order. You notice that with the far right, they use that terminology law and order. What they're speaking of is that people that don't look like them are advancing too much, and they must come up with a way to control. And this is what it at the root is all about. Now, I said that to say this. In 1995, when they began to implement, they changed. And it wasn't because of crime or nothing. It was a political move, get tough on crime. Yes. And they raised it here in Tennessee from 25 to 60 years. That's calendar years. The oldest person that ever lived in prison in Tennessee was an individual I know, and he did like 41 years, and he basically got out to die. When you look at the studies, they say that, the life expectancy is only 30 some odd years because of the environment, for one, is extremely dangerous. The food is depleted of any nutrients. You're not getting proper health care. You're not getting proper exercise. Concrete and steel does something to you for walking up and down those steps across those yards over a protracted period of time. You are not going to live 60 years. Now, with the truth in sentencing, that you were to do 100% of your time. So meaning if you got 20 years, then you could get good and honor time. The max you could get was 15% off of your time, which means you did 85% of the 20, which was a little over 17 years. So with the 60-year sentence that a 15-year-old got, he would have to do at a minimum 51 years before he would be eligible. That's not a release date. That's eligible. And I've seen guys go for parole. They do 20 years, go to parole board. They say come back in 20. Good God Almighty. This is real. And these are the kind of things that go on. So when it's been politically maneuvered into law, even a judge that may want to do the right thing, his hands is tied. This is what happened to Quinton.
Minimum sentences.
It's mandatory sentence. It's mandatory when you charge with certain crimes. Right now, I was speaking to a group, and there's a young man, we'll say his name is a juvenile. They're trying to see how to sentence him. Well, I said, what did he get convicted of? Well, they say he got convicted of first-degree murder. I said, they're just waiting on the right time to say it. But there's nothing no judge can do, because that sentence is a mandatory sentence unless we have the political will and cachet to change it. And that's why this event is important, because Quinton is being talked about, but there are hundreds, thousands of Quinton Sanders locked away in the prison houses of America. And as the scriptures say, none says restore.
Isaiah 42.
Nobody's talking about, in the Tennessee Department of Corrections, you may not know that the word rehabilitation was taken out decades ago. They are not interested in rehabilitation. It is housing, warehousing, and we can go on and on and on. But I want to focus where the focus needs to be tonight on this 51-year minimum that a child had to do. Now, Quinton Sanders, you can Google most of the basic information, Brother Shaheed.
I got it. I got his actual petition.
And the thing is that the circumstances, were tragic. 3 youths,
Children.
Yeah, children. Yeah,
3 children, brother.
They go to the mall and they were just shoplifting, and they were under pressure to do this. And but at any rate, when they were suspected of shoplifting, they left all of the stuff and ran out of the mall. And a high-speed chase ensued, and an officer, in trying to stop a moving vehicle that was going over 90 miles an hour with his own car, of course it crashed, and the officer lost his life. A tragedy, tragic. No question about it. No one's minimizing what happened.
That's
and
correct. Or absolving him of any responsibility.
And I want to say this, and I'm going to get to it, hopefully. No one is more remorseful than he himself. And it's not conversation, man. We sitting together, sitting on a bunk talking. This is real. But what I'm saying is the other individuals that were involved did their time there out because they had a plea agreement. When there's multiple defendants and you may want one more than the other, and the mastermind is the one that they wanted. And so they, turned state's evidence, they cooperated because sometimes we'll label a person a rat or a snitch, and that's not the case with children, but for whatever reason they got time. Quinton didn't.
Right.
And
they're out, right?
Everyone is out but him. He's the only one. He's the only one that's still in there. And when you saw the young man come in, man, and all of those young men, they were children, and and we all did what we could to kind of look out for them because we felt bad for them, and they did what young people do in prison, try to find their lane, but they didn't do anything fatal or harmful, and spending a lot of time with Quinton, we would talk. And they will weigh on them. People don't understand that there are very few of us who are committing offense that are hardened criminals, cold-blooded killer. No. So you have a conscience, and what you did out of desperation. You tried to do one thing and something else happened, but you go to bed at night and you can see that individual that you harmed. You can hear the voice. You play it over and over and over in your mind, and there's no mechanism, there's no class, there's no counseling session to get it to you and have you talk to someone to deal with the anxiety and the grief that you feel. And so you carry this stuff around. So this is that brother. He's carrying it around. And so what we were allowed to do and were blessed to do, we set up peer counseling groups. And as being an older brother and being over at one of the Islamic communities, and he being a Muslim himself, we would just talk. We spent a lot of time together, walking the yard. And, of course, we ended up being in the same room, And we would just talk, and he would say, Big Ock, he said, man, if I could go back to that day, man, I just took my chances with what, dude said, then going out there and did that. He said, man, it's just a tragic, man. He said them people lost the father, they lost the son, they lost the brother, uncle. He said, man, it just was, he said, it's terrible. He said, man, nobody should suffer like that. He said, but, man, my family's suffering, but, Mr. Overton's family's suffering too. So he's always had a sense of contrition. He's always been remorseful. He would say, Big Ock, that's what they call me.
Yes, sir.
He said, Big Ock, man, I wish I could talk to him, man. I wish I could let him know how sorry I am. I said, son, you will one day. I said, but you live your life according to that which you desire. And then, man, it's going to come to fruition.
Yes, sir.
And, he was young, so sometimes he'd be playing, and I had to say, man, don't, I said, this ain't no hustle, man. You either want to be free or you don't. But you got to think like a free man and live like a free man. That was my motto until it happened for me. And when I talked to him the other day, he said, man, you remember what you told me? I said, no, man, you wasn't listening. He said, man, you said think like a free man until you become a free man. I said, wait. I said, you got the lesson. So I'm going to put a pin in it right now so you can get in.
Oh, brother, look, I am drinking it in. I am getting an education, an intimate one on just an inside glance, you know, because I worked in the field. I was to some degree connected. I knew them. I was working in the Shelby County Jail. I saw them come in, you know, all of them, the juveniles. And I was the officer of the juvenile tanks. So I knew and remember a lot of the young men. And I was in the Nation at the time, and I would bring them the Final Call newspaper. And my lieutenant or my sergeant, floor sergeant, was, you know, she was amenable to allowing it, and because a lot of them couldn't read.
That's true.
And she would, her name was Sergeant Jackson.
Yeah,
and she would she would give them a reading assignment out of the Final Call, brother. And that's really where prison ministry started for me, because as a Muslim, I had been instilled with a love for black people, whereas before I didn't, because the environment, as I said earlier, to see the gods, man, you had to, you know, you had to put on a facade, man, to live over there.
You had to be about that life.
Yeah, you had to live over there. And the thing of it, man, I remember when it happened, they tried to say that they were members of the Nation of Islam. And I actually wrote an article to the Commercial Appeal. I got it on my laptop. I'm going to show it to you in rebuttal. And in that article, brother, I pleaded for justice and for fair treatment of those children that committed a childish act without the intent. Their intent was to steal some clothes, man. That's a misdemeanor.
Yes, sir.
They dropped all the clothes before they left.
Exactly.
Because they were frightened, like children get frightened when you catch them. And it just so happened in the interim of attempting to escape the consequences of a misdemeanor offense, a tragedy happens. But instead of looking at the tragedy and giving them the appropriate charge, we have always felt that there was a heavy hand put on those young men. It's just that simple, man.
Yes, sir. And I'm glad you said that. You know, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said that justice is the principle of fair dealing one with another.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm 18 months. If my offense would have happened 18 months later,
Whoa.
I could still be sitting there if I wasn't granted, release.
Mm-hmm.
That's the margin of error, and when you think about it, it's astonishing that you can sit and legislate and take away 51 years. Now, some people that are listening to this will say, well, you did the crime, you should do the time, and to a degree, I understand what you're saying. But however, in most countries, most civilized countries, when someone commits a crime, they consider it a failure of the society.
Exactly.
And again, Brother Shaheed, one of our axioms, written by 18th century philosopher by the name of Victor Hugo.
Go ahead.
He says that if a soul lives in darkness, I'm paraphrasing now, sins will be committed. He said the guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but the guilty one is he who creates the darkness. So who is it that has created this darkness, this environment that we see, this trap house culture, this, shoot 'em up, bang, bang. Every time you cut the television on, somebody's smoking on something.
Yes.
I remember that was called a counterculture, but now they mainstreamed it. And we got to ask ourselves why. And that's why last week when Dr. Wesley was on, we could see that this has been weaponized against our youth, black and white.
Yes.
And when it is done, it has arrested their development, and it has made them overly aggressive. And this is the result. And now we're trying to incarcerate ourselves out of the problem, and it is not going to happen.
Absolutely not, brother. It is not going to happen. We will not. And take it from me. And the interesting thing, brother, I have a peek on the prison industrial complex side of the fence because I've been blessed, and I do certainly consider it a blessing to be a student in the prison reform ministry of the Nation of Islam since 1994, and to have lived in the kind of environment that produces the kind of juveniles. They're just trying to fit in like any other young person. They're trying to navigate their way through a hostile environment. And I was watching a documentary, and I thought it was very hypocritical of Mr. Biden to say, well, I don't want to hear why they got the way they are. But provision is always made for white children and white offenders. Let's look at it for what it is. And it's always easy to hide the key for black people and young people, but there's always empathy where other ethnic groups, particularly whites, are concerned. Even with this issue that I'm going to mention in passing, where Emmett Till is concerned.
Yes.
They didn't have a problem in locking up Bill Cosby, an 80-something-year-old blind man. But they had the warrant, still got the warrant, for Carolyn Dunham or Bryant Dunham. And they convene a grand jury and they don't want to prosecute. See, that this is just sickening, man, how the system is strict for some and loose for others. And this is the case. They overly sentenced this young man. That has been our position. That's been my position since the day of it. You know, as tragic as it is, notwithstanding what I do professionally, justice is justice. The fair dealing is fair dealing, period. So
Exactly. And what we have to do is look at it, because the documentary that Sister Imani put together, and I saw this sister, beautiful sister, I said, you know, I don't know if it's going to get the kind of exposure, and we got to do all we can. But should be an award-winning documentary, really.
yes, we're going to put it out. We're going to let the people know.
Yeah.
Going to watch it.
It should be an award-winning documentary, because it was very tastefully done. But I want to say, you know, I'm looking at the title, Redeemable Son.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we look at how, you know, they say that this generation, this is a lost generation. What do you mean when you say lost? When you look at the word lost, one of the definitions is irredeemable, irreformable, irrecourageable, hopeless, past praying for. So now let's just look at Quinton Sanders, you know, Brother Quinton. Are you saying that he's past praying for? Are we saying that he's hopeless? Are we saying that he is irredeemable, irreformable? This documentary asks the question, a redeemable son. You know, well, there's a price for redemption.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's look at it now.
Let's look at it.
He comes in at 15, and I've seen them all come in. Many join different street organizations, and they wild out. They do this, they do that. They find themselves in the hole. They get many, many infractions. They add on to their prison sentence. Many of them get caught up in the subculture of drugs and alcohol, or many of the things that go on in the prison. There's nothing that you do out here that don't go on in there. It's just a smaller environment. It is the microcosm of the macro out here. Trust me and believe that. However, here's Quinton. He comes in and he gets his GED. You know, he wasn't reading on his level when he come in. You just said that many of them would be, I don't like labeling, but the term that you're familiar with will be functionally illiterate.
Yes, sir.
You know, but here is a brother that took it upon himself, you know, and now he's a lover of knowledge. You know, he got a book stacked up on one side of the wall. I got books on the other, you know. Now here's a brother that, you know, they don't force you or make you. He did that himself. I've seen him. He was been on many, many work crews. I mean, he had a skilled job. He's skilled. He worked in the prison industry in Tennessee. It's called Tricor, where they make many of the products that's sold out here, and they get paid pennies on the dollar. You see, and then you will get released from prison, Brother Andre, and a job you've been doing 15 years out here, you know, they won't even hire you, you know. And some of these companies like the Wilson Ball, Spalding, Dell, all that stuff is made in prison. Most of them components made in prison.
Man.
And I'm going to tell you something else. When you be on the line and they transfer you, you talking to somebody, more likely than not, the person that's on that other side of that phone that's dealing with your issue, he locked up somewhere. And because industry, you know, I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to dominate the conversation.
Oh, no, sir, brother. Don't even think the thought, man. I want the people to hear, because I'm going to say something in a minute about you.
But the thing is this, that when you have a workforce that you know can't strike, you know where they are every day, and even if the prison lockdown, man, they would come to the building and get the Tricor workers, that kept going on,
Lord have mercy.
And so he would go to work, and Brother Quinton, he worked.
Hello. Excuse us.
And he did all of those particular things where many would just lay around that had that kind of time. Those guys just lay around because they're like, man, what? I ain't never getting out. So, man, I'm not participating in anything. But not Brother Quinton. He took cognitive behavior, K-Jurade, thinking for a change, all of these programs that the Department of Correction offers to, quote unquote, help rehabilitate you, even though that is not the objective. He willingly participated in it. We were blessed through the Nation of Islam Prison Reform Ministry. I would head up certain classes. He attended all of them. Now, he wasn't in the nation per se, but he attended anyway. Anywhere that he felt he could better himself, you would find him there. And even during the pandemic, he would call me when he was able to get on the phone, and he would say, hey, Big Ock, man, I'm out, and we making these masks. We're going to make 5,000 masks for the community, man, because that COVID is serious out there. People losing their lives. And so, man, I put in a proposal, and then they accepted it. And now we making these masks, and we're going to donate them out there. I said, man, that's good. I said, for every good deed, a person is rewarded. But that's the character, is what I want to say.
Yes, sir.
Of the brother that's in there now that got incarcerated as a child and with no help except having the will and the desire to be better, changed and transformed his life. And I may add this, I would be shocked if he didn't walk out of there tomorrow with the help of Almighty God, that he wouldn't come out here and be an instrument for change for so many others.
Praise be to Allah. Brother, look, man, I really want the audience to hear what you're saying, simply because, Brother Kenneth, as a student in the prison reform ministry, I say without hesitation, I've met some very extraordinary brothers between 1994 up to 2022. Some of the best of the black man, brothers and sisters, is hidden away in prison houses. And that's why the scripture in the book of Isaiah 42nd chapter, I would quote it to them. And it says, we are a people that have been robbed and spoiled, and they are all hidden in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none say deliver. And for a spoil, none say restore. And what I have experienced over the years that I've attempted to serve as Nation of Islam Student Prison Reform Coordinator out of Mosque 55 was give the brothers a sense of hope. And I would always tell them, brother, some of you, when you leave here, you will be leaders in your own right because you have the skill set, you have the gifts. And I say that to say this about you, Brother Kenneth. You are a walking, I don't want to use trite language, but for lack of a better term, you are a walking billboard. You are the personification of the transformative power found in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad if a person would avail themselves to the information and not necessarily become a Muslim. Because I know a lot of brothers who would come out to the study class, but they were Christians. They were Sunni brothers. And they left the prison, federal and state, that I visited, and they stayed a Christian. But they took the principles that were found in the study guides and have applied it to their daily lives. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said, a good Christian is a good Muslim, and a good Muslim is a good Christian. So it wasn't about labels when I would go into the brothers, because there were people from our walk of life that come in that chapel. So I had to have a universal approach, and self-improvement is universal in its application. And no matter what your faith tradition is, you can relate to self-improvement.
Yes, sir.
And that's why I'm saying of you, brother, you men like you are very important, because when a brother like a Steve Turnage, who is out now, a brother like a Quinton Sanders, and other men like a brother named Brother Larry, Brother Kasamu and all the brothers, Brother Ike and brothers I met over the years, Brother Kentrell and Brother Dwayne, when they were inside and was able to see people that came out and have ascended the way you have, brother, there's no hope. You know, I can go in and talk to them, you know, but if you go in and they see where you've ascended to, brother, that's like confirmation for them when they see that. And it's food for the soul, and it's food for them and energy for them to keep striving where they are. So, brothers and sisters, we've been going at it. The meeting is going on the inside of the church chapel. We are live on location, Mississippi on the Move. We've gotten mobile. And we want to thank everyone for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum. I hope the sound is correct this week. If everything is loud and clear for everyone, type in a 1. Our brother Kenneth is going to be talking with some people that have been helping our brothers and sisters that are in situations similar to that of Steve Turnage. And we look forward to getting them to these microphones and have them share with us. Brothers and sisters, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to have some commercial messages, and we'll be right back.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
What's your source for truth in news reporting?
Justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced?
No shoot. No shoot. No shoot.
Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. To subscribe to local home delivery, call us at area code 662-252-8999. That's 662-252-8999. Visit our website at www.finalcall.com.
The Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique. At Urban Indulgence, we pride ourselves on offering quality, effective skincare. Handcrafted with plant-based, skin-loving ingredients, our soaps and body butters will give you luxurious lather and ultimate moisture. Experience the Urban Indulgence at 3314 Poplar Avenue in Memphis, 3 blocks west of Poplar Plaza, or shop with us online at theurbanindulgence.com. theurbanindulgence.com.
Mississippi on the move.
And we're back live on location at the Shady Grove Presbyterian Church here in the city of Memphis, Tennessee. We are in attendance of a very, very important discussion led off by a documentary entitled Redeemable Son, the Story of a Juvenile Lifer in Tennessee. And that juvenile lifer is a young man by the name of Steve Turnage, whom I have some familiarity with. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Steve Turnage. That's the person that's on my mind. It's actually Quinton Sanders. I knew Steve Turnage as well, but it's Quinton Sanders. Please forgive my mistake. It's the life of a juvenile lifer in Tennessee. And I'm telling you, man, Brother Kenneth, I'm so glad that we made the decision at your suggestion to be here and to be on location. Thankful that we have the kind of podcast that's good and mobile and we can move about. But I see this is groundbreaking, brother, in the sense that this platform can serve this cause wherever they go. All they got to do is say the word. In my mind, we can be there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're exactly right. And I remember setting up this, and one of the things that you always stress was having the ability to control our message.
Yes.
Because even on Facebook, Twitter, all these other social platforms, when you get out there, if you're not saying what, they want you to, or if you're saying something that they don't particularly want out there, which, is truth, they'll shut you down. You put in Facebook jail. There have been many times when we were doing the radio program, all of a sudden all we could get was buffering, and you'd be like, man, just 5 minutes ago, everything was fine. And so what that led us to believe that, we have to control our platform so we won't be edited, or we won't be minimized as far as with time or told what we can and cannot say. So I appreciate you having the vision and then having the wherewithal and the audacity and tenacity to do it. Because in this protracted liberation struggle, sometimes we get weary, we get weak, and we throw our hands up. And that is what our oppressors and exploiter depend upon. And so while the crowd here is nice and energetic, it should be 5 times as much. I mean, they should be outside. They should be, standing room only. And again, it is because these issues not going to make the commercial appeal. No, it can't, because there are many politicians who are connected to the prison industrial complex. There used to be CCA, but now it's called Core Civic. And if you don't know anything about the privatization movement of prisons, you go back and study. In Tennessee now, you have Whiteville and Hardeman County. There's 2 facilities in Hardeman County. We have South Central, which is in Clifton, Tennessee, and then the newest and probably the worst ran, most deadliest, violent prison in Tennessee now is the Trisdale CCA, or Core Civic private institution up in, I think it's Hartsville. And it's a slaughterhouse. And one, you don't have adequate staffing. That is a problem. There were people who were leaking the story, and they were whistleblowers years ago. And while I still was there, the staffing cannot go lower than 25%, and they was operating sometimes at 70% understaffed. They would shut down portions of the facility in order to just open the doors, and then sometimes they would just leave us in the cell illegally because they don't have the staff to run the place. Well, guess what happened when you don't have security staff? Then you don't have safety, and so those who prey on the weak and the vulnerable, they take control. And the officer, they there to do their 8 and hit the gate, and they have a zone they can go to and lock the door and be safe and wait for help to come whenever it gets there. And you're left out there in the lion's den.
Defend for yourself.
And so this is why, again, our study circle, we came up with conflict resolution programs where we would try to squash the beefs. We would intervene on people's behalf. We said that every man has a right to do his time according to how he does it, but you should not impose your will on another man. We already in an environment of exploitation and new slavery. So we're not going to let anyone become a new kind of master, Pharaoh, or Nebuchadnezzar, or Caesar. And so then once we establish the peace, then we maintain the peace. So we had a group that was called the Peacekeepers, and we would make these flyers. And I'm not a liar. I'm just telling you what it is. We took it upon ourselves to do this because the people that were in charge of the institution did not care. If you got slaughtered, they would lock you in the room, take the body out, mop up the blood, and then, resume normal activities. That's what it was. So we took an interest in ourselves, and this is why it makes a brother like Quinton Sanders, who was involved in all of those activities. He was a part of the Peacekeepers. He was a part of the conflict resolution. When there were things that I needed done and needed his influence and his expertise, then he gladly gave it. And so, and you're not getting a salary, you're not getting any reduction off your sentence. You do those things because you haven't lost your humanity. And make no mistake about it, people, when you come to prison, yes, it's a physical thing, but it is more psychological.
Yes, sir.
And they want to break you down to the degree where you lose your humanity and your dignity. They reduce you to the level of the beast of the fields and watch you act accordingly.
Brother, I want to disabuse someone who may be listening of a thought that I believe that may be floating out in the audience. And that thought is, the audience may have heard me say, well, Brother Shaheed, you said you grew up in the Hillview or Shady Grove, you made it out, and you doing pretty good, and X, Y, Z, and ABC. Let me disabuse us of that. I consider myself a miracle, just to be frank with you. I was not supposed to make it. And I know some other cats, a few of us that come out of that, for the most part, we were scathed. We didn't come out unscathed. We just survived. The thing that saved my life was the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, straight up, because I know where I was headed. I made it out with a semblance of my sanity. I was able to go to school, didn't finish, and I knew why. As I got older, I know why I didn't finish college. It was because of the environment that I was exposed to, and I didn't have. I was lucky. I was the first to even go to college of all of my siblings, all 6 of us, to even go into a college dormitory, but I didn't complete it. But I say that to say it's errant thinking to say that, well, you made it, Shaheed. How come he couldn't make it? Man, look, if you set a house on fire and there's 50 people in the house and 10 make it out, you would look at those 10 and say, well, hell, yeah, they made it out. How come the other 40 didn't make it out? What was wrong with them? They couldn't find the door. Everybody does not respond the same to those environments. Everybody can't navigate them. In fact, most of us can't navigate them alone. Many of us are blessed to have the kind of avenues and assistance and to have the kind of people to come into their lives and help be a buffer between you and the environment. The thing that really saved me was sports. I ran track and I played football. Started from Pee Wee. And I can remember every football coach I have, from Coach Williams all the way up to Coach Hancock and Coach. Those men, those were black men in the community that encouraged us, come on, son, play ball. Although all of us couldn't do it. But that was one of the things, brother, that helped to keep me out of trouble and keep me from falling victim and influenced in a way, because I'm going to say without hesitation, I wasn't one of the boogeymans in the hood. I was one of the dudes trying to steer away from the boogeyman that I knew that was in the hood. Them brothers that come on, man, let's go do the ABC. I'm like, nah, man, I got to go to practice, bro. I can't get involved in that. And you knew brothers like that. And you knew where the robber lived.
Exactly.
In Shady Grove, I knew when Memphis police. I remember one summer, brother, they came in, the Memphis police. They came into Shady Grove about 20-some cars deep. I knew they were looking for Sean and Tutu Clayton. All of us knew who they were looking for. They had just robbed a Quick Check.
Yeah.
And it was a brother coming out, man, with his, I think it was his girlfriend or whatever. And they detained him, thought it was him, and we were standing off. I was about maybe 9 or 10 years old then. And we're watching, and all of a sudden, man, about 9 officers just started beating that brother with a nightstick. They beat that brother until his head looked like hamburger, and walked off and just left him. That's the kind of thing that we as children were traumatized with growing up in Shady Gardens. Not only the environment, but how we were treated by law enforcement, and that's what made us start throwing rocks at cop cars. we were young, man.
Had no respect for them.
No, sir. We simply didn't. But I wanted to disabuse someone who may be thinking that because a few of us made it out, how come Quinton Sanders didn't make it out of the Hillview, where the environment was exponentially more toxic in his time than it was in my time.
And also the resources, because you and I, we're close to around the same age. Sports was an outlet for us.
Yes.
Those things vanishing. You always had the police athletic league, the PL, where you can go and box, or they would take you on these little outings to get you out of the environment, to show you that, hey, it's something else out of here than this block that you living on.
Yeah.
Now you don't have that.
You don't.
The energy is put again into incarceration, and then this legislation, and we don't look at it like this because but it is being a political prisoner almost, because it was politics that increased the amount of time. And when you look at statistics, crime hasn't went down.
No.
As far as relative. And
it's gotten worse, brother.
It's so locking someone up is not solving your problem. At the root of this problem, when you talk to Dr. Jeffrey Futrell from Young Man University, he'll tell you crime is a derivative of poverty.
Yes.
And we're not trying to solve poverty. And since we're not really dealing with the economic issue, then we're just this lip profession. It's all window dressing. It's costume, cosmetic. And so this is why an event like this is important. This is why, hopefully they're doing a panel discussion now, that we can get some of the panelists here that's doing a yeoman's work, because they're out there and they pushing these legislators. I think the DA name is Steve
Mulroy. He's here. He's out there now.
And so now we got to hold his feet to the fire. Okay, we bagged you up, man. Now what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I think the thing that has to be done, Brother Kenneth, there has to be legislation, man, because as us in law enforcement, we don't know all the ins and outs and the nuances of the DA's office. We do the reports, we do all of the pretrial stuff. We find out who did it, we get the probable cause, we get the evidence, and boom, we charge them, and they go into pretrial. And the charges are determined primarily by the DA. The DA, they do the prosecution portion, and then the sentencing is left up to the judge. And God forbid, if they have minimum mandatory sentencing, the judge's hand, as you alluded to earlier, or as you stated earlier, their hands are tied. So until we as a community understand that if we don't get involved on certain levels, and that's what's making this podcast, I'm seeing more and more the importance of this podcast, brother, and the importance of what you're doing with regard to prison reform, and the things that we have in the funnel that we want to make a reality. There is no mystery God. That's what we're taught in the Nation of Islam. There is no mystery God. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan has said to black people, the reason we suffer the way we suffer, the reason we have the problems, is because we suffer under false ideas and concepts in religion, whereby we think God is going to in some spooky, mysterious way change our lives and our condition and make our lives and condition better. No, God works through people, and it is us who know better. The duty of the civilized, the duty of the informed, or the civilized, is to teach civilization to the uncivilized. And what is civilization? It is knowledge and wisdom and understanding of the human family of the earth. And when you understand self, then you will engage in the proper use of self. That's what I would say to brothers in prison. Self-improvement leads you to self-analysis. You self-analyze and you self-correct. And once you learn the knowledge and you acquire the knowledge of self, you won't misuse your life, brother. And you will find the proper use of the rest of your life. And you will engage in proper human conduct willingly, because you will fall in love with who you are. And Allah, God, will help you discover your gifts. And when you discover your gifts, you're like, man, I didn't know I can do that. And I've seen brothers, and I'm sure you have, brother, you was in there. I've seen brothers, man, come to consciousness, and they begin to read, and the sense of accomplishment that comes over their face. And then when I go and visit, they're like, Brother Muhammad, man, I read this, and I read that, and I read this, that, and the other. And my only word was them, brother, stay on Siratul Mustaqim. Stay on the path, brother. Keep enlightening yourself. And you can turn, even if you don't think you'll ever leave here, you can turn where you are into a better place with just the way you think, brother. But man, this is exciting to me. Brothers and sisters, we want to thank everyone. Shout out to all of the listeners. My sister Coretta is on, Sister Tammy is on, Sister Patsy buried down there in Tupelo, or Pontotoc, I should say. My dear Sister Audrey, please be careful on the road, sis. I got your message. My dear wife is on, Sister Shahida, and many others. Who else is that? That's Brother Smith Wiley is on. We got a lot of new listeners on tonight. We want to thank you all for tuning in to this On Location podcast. We are not in our regular location. We are mobile. We are at Shady Grove Missionary Baptist Church, and they are holding a forum, panel discussion on a documentary entitled Redeemable Son, the story of a juvenile lifer in Tennessee. And that juvenile lifer is Quinton Sanders. And the caption on the documentary, it reads, children in the state of Tennessee can be sentenced to a 60-year life sentence, with the minimum sentence being 51 years, which is the hardest sentence for children in the country. These young people are known as juvenile lifers. So essentially, man, in the state of Tennessee, if you're a juvenile and you get remanded over and you commit a felony murder, for instance, and you get a life sentence for you is at least 51 years before you can even be considered for parole. That's not a release date, as Brother Kenneth stated earlier. So here we are, Brother Kenneth, man, I'm chomping at the bit to hear from the people that you introduced me to. I'm prayerful that they can carve out a few moments to come and sit.
Yes, sir.
And be with us. And I'm glad you are here, brother, to share from the perspective that you have shared from thus far, because there's a lot to this. There's a lot of moving parts to it. And we really have a mountain. We have an elephant to eat, proverbially, so to speak. And there are many, 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 many stories like this. I've seen them. Brother Kenneth has lived them. And I know for a fact that there are redeemable brothers in the belly of the beast. So as the question is asked in Isaiah, it's the statement is made in Isaiah, there's none who say restore. Well, we are among those who say restore, and the restoration of our brothers and the redemptive mindset that's needed in this particular facet of work is men who think like myself and like Brother Kenneth, because I'm a firm believer that these brothers have a lot of life left in them, and they have a lot to contribute. And just like anyone else learns from their mistakes, these brothers should be given the opportunity, particularly when they make them as very, very young people, as juveniles, 15, 16, and 17 years of age. So, Brother Kenneth, there you have it, man. We're going to make the lines available to our audience tonight, because the lines are available. So if you're so inclined to want to call in, you can call our number at 901-877-4478, and we will get you in live and share your thoughts with tonight's podcast, because many of these young men that have gone through what Brother Quinton Sanders is still going through were very young, and they were not young men yet. There are studies that says at that age they're not fully developed mentally. Their brains are still developing. But we live in a society where young black boys and young black people, or black people in general, are concerned. There's an indifference, Brother Kenneth, to the plight of black people. When we get to the courts and when we get to the judges and the prosecutors, there's an indifference. There's no empathy. There's no bird's eye view. They don't take what they call it, take all of the circumstances into account.
That's right.
As to what happened to this young man. It's just they take this myopic, narrow view of the time that this event started to the time that it was completed. That's all they want to look at. They don't want to look at the circumstances of this young person's life, but they do it with everyone else except for us. And that is the problem in this system.
Well, and that's why when you look at the title, Redeemable, son, you know, they're telling you, they're asking the question, they're making a statement. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says that there is no human being that cannot be redeemed. But there's a process that one has to undertake. And this society that looks upon, you know, a certain segment as you know, refuge or being toxic, then they're not going to go through the pain and the time in order to bring that about. So we have to take it upon ourselves. We have to take our platforms, whatever it may be, and bring light to this. This particular individual, Quinton Sanders, if you're giving this sentence, and when brothers walk around, you know, we will say, oh, he got that 51. And what that mean is, man, he, you know, it's over with. That is really a death sentence. You're not going to live. I'm going to say this again. You are not going to survive in prison 51 years. It's a death sentence. You're going to die. You have been sentenced to death. I mean, you don't get the right kind of food. Here's a typical meal, for example. They say you're supposed to get, let's say, 2,500 calories, Brother Shaheed. Well, they may give you 2 pieces of cake to help meet that. But you got, you know, maybe a tablespoon of powdered eggs. They'll give you a milk. They try not to give you much fresh fruit because their excuse is, well, you know, they make wine out of, man. Guys make wine out of dandelions. If a person want to drink, he going to drink, you know, aerosol or whatnot. But they use those things as excuses. Now, it's not that tomatoes and apples and oranges and lettuce and stuff not at the facility. The staff eat very well. It's why, you know, normally they come in one size and then they begin to grow.
Yes, sir.
If you know what I mean.
I know.
And, you know, and that's
it ain't just donuts.
Yeah, and that's what happens. But you are literally basically starved, and you have to eat commissary. Now, you make 17 cents. That's the basic in an hour. And so after working a month, you may get $25 and 70-something cents. I think that's what it comes out to. Now, they attach court costs and fines to most. After 95, people would have court costs and fines. So the facility, they were supposed to only take 50%, but they would take it all. So you would work the whole month, and then get a little slip saying your money went to court costs and fine, which is just a robbery. And so now you have created an environment of criminality because I need soap. You know, they don't give you soap. You got to buy it. You know, you got to buy toothpaste. You got to buy your toothbrush. You got to buy all of those toiletries. So now either I got to hustle to get it or I got to rob and steal.
It's the survival of the fittest.
It's what it is, you know, and the weak get preyed upon. And we were just blessed to have certain brothers who were strong enough to set a standard and a model of how we were going to do things, and then be able to, through example and other means, you know, enforce that. And so we can all live in peace because we don't have to butcher one another. We don't have to, man, sit by and watch us lose our lives over, you know, a small debt not being paid or something silly. Or every person's talking about they want to be respect. So this is why the conflict resolution team we put together called the Peacekeepers, and we had a flyer that we would put out, you see. And it had things on there that, one, respect was mutual. See, people always talking about you got to respect me, but they don't have to respect nobody else. So those so-called Caesars and Pharaohs and Napoleons, we let them know, hey, respect is a mutual thing. You know, you want to be respected, and you got to give respect.
Correct.
You see? And then we also said that we had to have a righteous code of conduct. See, it's one thing to say, Assalamu alaikum. Another thing to say, wa alaikum salam, you know, peace. But the thing that established the peace is what undergirds the peace. And that's having a righteous code of conduct. And that conduct was given to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I treat you the way I want you to treat me. So I can't lie on you and say peace. I can't rob from you and say peace. I can't go and try to abuse you and take advantage of you and then say peace. Because if I say peace and then I really mean peace, then there has to be a righteous code of conduct. And then once we have that righteous code of conduct, that produces love. And then you turn the penitentiary into a university. And so I want to get to our 3-point program again that we were blessed to use out of the 10 points of the Million Morris movement. We took 3 out of that. The first one was education. And the thing, we focused on the 3 R's. They would always tell us the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. Well, we had 3 R's, Brother Andre. There was reconciliation, rehabilitation or reformation, and then responsibility. We used those 3 R's. That's what we use for education. Our second one, education was actually 2. Our first one was unity. You see, we had to have operational unity. Everybody wasn't going to be Muslim. Everybody wasn't going to be Christian. Everybody wasn't going to belong to those street organizations. But what we understood, that we had a common thing. We all were locked up. We had a common value. We all wanted to get out. And we had a common interest. We all wanted to make sure that we could go about the day not looking over our shoulders and wondering what's coming around the corner. So we operated with that. And the third, and I would like to say it was one of the most important points of our 3-point program, and it was called cultural awareness. And we said that we would have to redefine what it meant to be black men. We was not going to allow the media's depiction of who we are as quote-unquote convicts, ex-felons, or whatever to define us. We were going to define ourselves. And so we looked at the policies and procedures of the institutions. And there's always things that's written in them that they don't want you to know. For example, they have to provide culturally sensitive programs. So we were able to get Black history. Now, I mean, it was a small thing to you, but having a Black history program in there allowed us to meet particular times during the month. And the more opportunities we have to meet, we have to teach. And then we have an opportunity to get and purchase books, because the library are supposed to house different genres of books. And you will go where it says Black literature, and it'll be Sports Illustrated. So we started getting different books in. Some of the books we got in, we started off with Dr. Naeem Akbar's book, Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery, Visions of Black Men. All of his books that he had put out, The Community of Self, all of Dr. Akbar's books, and then we started getting in his videos. We started getting in, The Final Call, started getting in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, anything we thought that could develop the mentality of the men of that institution and to get them to stop thinking inside the walls and start projecting and seeing themselves outside the walls. Why is that important? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says development outgrows confinement. Everything in nature starts basically in a prison, in a confined state. Then it begins to grow. If it is nurtured, it grows and grows properly. It will outgrow the prison that is in, whether it is a room or whether it is a seed. It's going to outgrow it. And what's within has to come out. We would use one of Dr. Akbar, he gave the analogy of the caterpillar, cocoon, and a butterfly. And the caterpillar, a hairy worm, the caterpillar has one function, is to eat. And the caterpillar, when you see it's not attractive to you. And some people are guilty. You would get the caterpillar, put them in a cup, and do crazy stuff to them. You ain't know no better. But it wasn't something that, you wanted to nurture. And the caterpillar is in a dangerous environment. It's crawling, so it can get stepped on, it can get ate. But the caterpillar goes about his daily function. And his one function is to eat. However, Brother Shaheed and those who are listening, the caterpillar does not eat indiscriminately. He eats the best leaves, because what he eats is going to be used to form his cocoon. The cocoon is not made from the outside of the caterpillar. It is made from the inside. He spits up what he's eaten, and then he wraps himself in it in order to develop. Now, it is important that the caterpillar eat the right type of food. Well, let's use this analogy. It is important for you and I to mentally eat the right type of food, to read the right type of books, to involve ourselves in the right type of program. And so while you're in there, if you're doing the right kind of things and you're eating the right mental and spiritual food, then you develop, you form your own cocoon out of the information that you have read, and you're coming out of your mind and you're wrapping yourself in that. And when you wrap yourself in a higher knowledge, higher wisdom, higher understanding, when you come out of that, you are a butterfly. A butterfly is a celestial being, and anytime someone sees a butterfly, they just want it to land on. They hold their hand out and they hope and pray, just land on, because it's so beautiful. You want to look at it. Well, that's the potential of every person inside one of those prisons.
Yes,
if he has the right materials, he's can create the right environment and begin to eat properly, to ingest the right type of program, then he'll wrap himself in that, and then he'll outgrow that which had confined him.
Yes,
and that has been proven because we did it over and over again. And whether someone prescribed to everything that the Nation of Islam teach and believe, those programs of self-improvement, those study circles that we formed were beneficial for the ones who participated.
Yes, sir. You know, Brother Kenneth, as I was sitting listening to you, brother, it occurred to me that the effect that the right food, if you will, in terms of knowledge and information that's available in even a prison, that a brother or sister who is incarcerated can avail themselves to, that hostile environment that's called the prison can be turned into a hostile environment called a womb. And they can actually come to birth in the darkness from a real dark place, because the womb of the female is a hostile environment where human life comes to birth. And likewise, because of what's there that's designed to give life, so it is with the teachings. When the teachings are in the prison, and it helps me to understand in a deeper sense why there are those in high places, Senator Kirk, Senator Durbin, Senator Peter King, who have worked to get the Nation of Islam out of the prison system. Because if they've gotten rid of the language of rehabilitate, brother, then they didn't just do that in no vacuum. They can't have rehabilitation if they privatize prisons. Private prison presupposes that you're going to have a certain segment of the population to ensure that these who are investing will have occupancy to make money.
That's right.
I mean, that's just 1 + 1 is 2. You don't go into privatization of prisons because you are a good citizen. You going in to turn a buck, man. You going in to make a profit. So that's why in my studies, brother, there are states, most of the states, or really all of the states, that have private prisons. They have contracts with the states that the states must ensure that they have a certain level of occupancy at all times. And if they don't meet that requirement, some of them are upwards of 80%. If they don't have 80% occupancy at all times, then the states have to pay the shortfall. So what does that say for prosecutors? What does that say for law enforcement agencies? What does that say for the politics? If these states don't want to pay that shortfall, and this is documented, then it would behoove them to ensure that they're going to have occupancy in these private prisons. So it's a shame, man. It's really, and the thing of it is, brothers and sisters, as we talk to you, and don't worry, I know it's 8:18. We're going to stay on as long as necessary to get these guests on for our brother to interview them and get words from them. And I want to hear from them, certainly want to hear from them. But it's up to us, brothers and sisters. The cavalry ain't coming. Haven't you noticed? You have to realize we are the cavalry. We are the men and women that's going to have to make our mind up that we're not going to continue to sit around and watch from the side as our young people get swallowed up and bequeath to the next generation the work that we should be doing. It's just that simple, and that's what drives me, Brother Kenneth. I'm going to just be straight up.
Yes, sir.
I can't sit down, brother. I'm going to be busy We're going to do our part. I'm going to do my part while I'm on this planet towards the liberation and improve the life outcomes of myself, my family, and my people, anybody who would listen. And any brother that's walking with Brother Shaheed, he's going to be walking with a brother that's trying to improve himself and everything around him. And I just firmly believe, brother, as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has clearly demonstrated, if God be for you, Chief, there's no one that can be against you. We're going to take another quick break, and we're going to get these commercial messages in, and we'll be right back.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
What's your source for truth in news reports?
Justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced?
No shoot. No shoot. No shoot.
Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. To subscribe to local home delivery, call us at area code 662-252-8999. That's 662-252-8999. Visit our website at www.finalcall.com.
The Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique. At Urban Indulgence, we pride ourselves on offering quality, effective skincare. Handcrafted with plant-based, skin-loving ingredients, our soaps and body butters will give you luxurious lather and ultimate moisture. Experience the Urban Indulgence at 3314 Poplar Avenue in Memphis, 3 blocks west of Poplar Plaza, or shop with us online at theurbanindulgence.com. theurbanindulgence.com.
Mississippi on the move.
And we are back live with the Mississippi on the Move podcast. I am your brother Abdul Shaheed Muhammad, and they are starting to really wind down in the audience out there, and I think we have one of the participants that's going to come and sit with us and give us some further insight as to what's happening. And I'm going to have my brother Kenneth. He's here, and they just walked in, and we're going to have our brother Kenneth Muhammad have a conversation with you and those who he will be introducing to you momentarily. So I'm going to shift gears, and I'm going to turn this microphone around. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. Brother Kenneth, I'm passing the baton to you, sir, and you are on.
Okay, thank you. They just finished up the panel discussion. We have Sister Monty. She's here, the one who does the documentary, and some of the people that played an integral part of getting this out into the forefront of the people's mind. Sitting with me right now is a powerhouse, a dynamo. I was fortunate to meet her at a community event, and she looked at small and slight, but don't let the look fool you. She's a force to be reckoned with. You see her all the time when there's an injustice. She's out front. Sister Dawn Harrington of Free Hearts. We're glad that you're here on Mississippi on the Move. So
thank you so much for having me.
So introduce yourself, sister, and then let us know why this particular cause is important and why the people that's listening should get involved.
Hey, so my name is Dawn Harrington. I'm the executive director of Free Hearts, and we're an organization that's led by formerly incarcerated women, and we're organizing families that are impacted by incarceration. And so the issue of life sentences, first of all, the life sentences in our state are ridiculous.
Yes, ma'am.
And actually, we talked a little bit earlier about the evolution of the life sentence in this state and how it went from
Started at 13.
13 to 15 to 25, and now we have 51 calendar years without the possibility of, before you get the possibility of parole. And we don't know of anyone that's ever survived that sentence in its entirety. And so it's essentially a death sentence. And to just think that we're giving that sentence to kids, to young people who bottle up so much of, potential, so much that of the medicine that we actually need to heal this world, to heal this land. Like, they have the things that we need over a mistake, over a bad decision. I don't think anybody should get a sentence like that, and much less a young person. And so that's why we're here today, to really help to change hearts and minds, for people to really be able to see this. And one thing that we've been seeing as we've been going across the state, showing this documentary, it's like people really are starting to question themselves, to question their beliefs, to really think about what does justice really mean? And I think that's a powerful thing. I think that's where we need to be as a community, because a lot of times what we're voluntold that justice should be, it's not justice. It's injustice. It's oppression. It's exploitation. It's not, nobody on either side is getting anything good out of it. So that's why we're here today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. I mean, eloquently said. And you hit a point that I was meditating on this morning as I was walking around and trying to just understand this particular space and time. That what's going on, it says less about Quinton and more about us. This is about us.
Right.
Us as a society, us as human beings. Where is our humanity? Because if we're not going to speak out, cry out about this particular issue, and this issue is all right with us, that's an indictment of who we are.
Exactly.
You see, we can say the system this, the system that, but systems come out of the mind of individuals. Because you can get rid of the system and not get rid of the mind that it came out of, and that mind will reproduce the system.
Exactly.
So we as human beings got to say, this is not right. We can't politicize this issue anymore. The politics have not served anyone. I mean, you can go from authoring an oppressive bill and being the author of it, and then be the president, and then act like you never did anything.
Right.
And so we see now that politics, we're just used as a political football. So your organization, Free Arts, tell us a little bit about that before you have to go, sister.
Okay, yeah. So Free Hearts, we are organizing all across the state of Tennessee, and we're also locking arms with our sister organization, our brother organizations all across the country, and quite frankly, all across the world. And we do participatory defense. We're part of the Participatory Defense Network with Director Imani, as well with Community Defense of East Tennessee. We do community building and cooperatives, just really building those cooperative infrastructure, businesses, cooperative housing together, just figuring it out. We are working on changing policy. We've been able to change 3 laws, but it's a lot of other laws that we feel like need to be changed. And most of all, we're fighting to be free. Yes. We want to be free in every sense of the word. We're not free until we're all free. So we're trying to bring all of our sisters, all of our siblings home so we could be powerful together, and we know that we will do it.
Hey, when you said that, I thought about our number one point in our program is that we want freedom.
Period.
We want a full and complete freedom.
Yes.
And so, hey, we good just on that point. That's our first point. We good. So we can lock arms. Thank you. And we know, I think Brother Shaheed wanted to ask a question before we get Sister Imani in here, because we have a few more. Let me get Brother Shaheed on.
Peace and blessings to you, sister. Thank you for coming to the Mississippi on the Move podcast. My question quickly is, in terms of preventive, or before they get to the prison industrial complex, are you partnering with any organizations that are working that end of the candlestick, if you will, that's acting in a proactive capacity, because of course, as we see it now, it's worse now in terms of before they ever get there.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And yes, we pay, when it comes to kids, we pay over $315 a day to lock kids up, to have them locked up, right? We pay once they become an adult. We pay on average around $100 per day to have them locked up. We're paying as a state, as the state of Tennessee, but a lot of the nearby states as well. We're paying over $1 billion a year. And so really that's a whole lot of money. How much of that investment do you think we're actually giving to the young people before they're even locked up? With us, we, have programs within the schools working with children whose parents are incarcerated and deported. And, a lot of those young people, they are, the statistics say that they are more likely to become incarcerated themselves. We also do work with a lot of other organizations that do that preventative work. But I will say, if we demand that our taxpayer money, that the money that's coming out of the federal government that we're using to incarcerate our people, that we get our money and then be able to, as a community, just really figure out, okay, these are the hard problems. What are the solutions? And be able to fund it with our own money. I think we could see a much better outcome on all sides. Thank you.
Yes, that's beautiful. Now, if someone wanted to link up with Free Hearts or sign a petition for Quinton Sanders, how would they be able to do that?
So to link up with Free Hearts, you can go to freeheartsorg.com. That's freeheartsorg.com. And then a petition for Quinton, you can go to change.org and search Quinton Sanders. And I know Sister Imani is going to speak more about that, but you can definitely go on there, sign the petition, go on YouTube, look up Redeemable Son. And when you are outraged, get involved.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Sister Dawn. I know you're very busy, and you honored us with your presence, and keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a bang-up job, Sister. Once again,
thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
That's Sister Dawn Harrington of Free Hearts. Go on their webpage and website and look them up and join on. Next, we're going to have the, I might want to say mastermind behind this, the director who did such a magnificent job on this documentary. This documentary is not that long, so you can go to YouTube, type in Redeemable Son, and watch it. And I'm telling you, if you watch it, you're going to be touched. You're going to be moved. It was tastefully done, eloquently, and it got right to the point. And we have right here now the sister that was behind it, Sister Imani. Introduce yourself to our listening audience and tell us, what was your motivation for doing this documentary?
Peace and blessings, everyone, and thank you for having me here. My motivation really boils down to looking at my nephew in his eyes and knowing that Quinton was a young boy in Tennessee, knowing that all of our children that look like us can face anything and all of these obstacles, and they're not even allowed to be children at this point. So I wanted to show how our children have to try to overcome things, but then they are not allowed to be children, and then they're thrown away to this adult court system and not given a second chance.
Yes, and some of the statistics that you put in the documentary dealing with Shelby County, those of us who have been victimized by the Memphis DA in Shelby County, we understood it, but I'm glad you put it out there that 100% of the children that was bound over as adults, African American. So now that presupposes that we're doing more crime than everyone else, that we're the only ones in the system. We know that's not the case. So that suggests that there's some kind of plan in place. And
Absolutely.
Those of us who understand control and how you control a segment of a society that you feel may be undesirable. You have 5 P's of control. And the first one is penology, prisons, which is taught in all major universities, penology. And there's other ones like propaganda, psychology, politics, and all those particular things. But the first thing you got to have is a place to house people. And this is why giving a child, we use the word juvenile to hide the fact that these are children.
They're babies.
And you bind them over as adults. But he can't buy alcohol. He can't buy cigarettes. He can't vote. He can't get a driver's license. But he can be sentenced and put away. And basically you said he's irredeemable. So the title, Redeemable Son, resonates so much because here's a young man, that I know intimately. And you see him grow through the stages of life and figuring it out in one of the worst hostile environments. And I was telling the brother, I don't care how hard, anybody projects themselves. Nobody willfully signs up to go to prison. You don't want that kind of heat.
Right.
You don't want that. And to go in as a child and still be in your right mind and still have your humanity, after nearly 28 years, that's a testament to the character and integrity. And even if no one, not even him, and I shared it on the podcast because we sat down, when you in the cell with a person, you intimate. And I know how remorseful he is. I know how contrite he is. He's tell me on several occasions, man, I wish I could talk to that family. I wish I could let them know. And he probably said the same thing to you all. And I said, son, one day you will. One day you will, Just keep the faith. So we are ecstatic that you all are championing this cause, this documentary, as I was mentioning on the podcast. We got to get it out there and people to see it because to me it is an award-winning documentary. And this is what is necessary. And if we go back, people, because, we always have to speak to that segment that we, feel like, man, he got what he got coming. I bring up the West Memphis 3, and I'm not the kind of brother that begrudges anybody anything. Whatever you get, that's what God had for you. However, when they were released under an alpha plea, meaning that they pled guilty, and they took the time without accepting responsibility. So they weren't exonerated. And so they had a reduced sentence. And if you look up the crime, it speaks for itself. That's not the case with Quinton. They were allowed to do whatever time and then get out. And the crime, they had, Hollywood celebrities coming to their aid and defense and was saying they were children. They were too young. They didn't know what they were doing. Even if they did it, they didn't know. They had all of those things working for them. But we know many juvenile lifers and many who had just turned 18 and 19, which was still teenagers.
Mentally, yes.
That got that sentence. And in Tennessee, but where's the outcry? Where's the outcry?
We're starting it.
Yes.
At the beginning of the documentary, I wrote a poem called Forever 17. And that name was from a child in Knoxville who was killed in the bathroom of his school by police officers. He was shot. That just goes to speak to how our children are not allowed to grow up, how they go through all of these things and everything I said in that poem. People don't care, but it's time for us to highlight, look, our children are living in a war zone here. You want to give to Pakistan, you want to give to Ukraine. What about the war zones here? What about what our children and our families are going through? We're not asking for a handout, but we need you to get your foot off of our necks, right? We need to be able to raise our children in safe environments. We need the resources that we need for our families to be distributed how we want, not how you want. This documentary speaks to a lot of those socioeconomic factors that are ignored. And like you said, Quinton is just one of so many children out here, Quinton and Almir. this is time for us to rally around our children. Regardless what our beliefs are, we have to stand behind our children because they are our future. And if we don't have a future, we don't exist.
Yes, that is so very true. Sister Amani, before we let you go, if someone is listening or just watched that particular powerful documentary and say, you know what, I want to get involved, how can they help Quinton and others in that situation?
We do have a we have a petition for Quinton on change.org. If you put in Quinton Sanders, you can go to his petition. Almir Nance, you can go to his petition. You can go to cdat.org. cdatpush.org, which is our website. Look up Community Defense of East Tennessee. If you're in the state of Tennessee, we are wanting people to write the Supreme Court to say this is unconstitutional. We do not want this for our children in our state because we're waiting on that decision. You can email those quotes. You can mail them to us. You can go to our website and find our information. Again, it's CDAT-PUSH, like C like cat, D like dog, E echo, T like Tom, push.org, and you can get that information.
Thank you so very much. Continue to work. I pray God bless you with the right results because this was phenomenal.
Thank
we
you.
need to take this at every venue all over the state. And it has to, as I said earlier, it's a watershed moment, and we have to get a tsunami effect now. And if you're listening from out of state, it don't matter if you live in Tennessee or not. Right. This is going on, and we got to get this and put it at the feet of those who have the ability to change. And this is why when I heard that the newly elected district attorney was here, and I pray he was listening, and the right people are talking to him, and we would love to get him on. But, he has to understand that, that the votes that he got, now he got to start responding. He's got to do something. So continue the good work, and I know you're going to be successful because you got the right cause and the right spirit and the right people with you.
Thank you. One more thing, we
Yes,
are,
ma'am.
if anybody does want to show this at their organization, their facility, online, we are very much open to that. So.
Oh, yes,
You
ma'am.
can rest assured. I know they can't hear me, but I want to say that the Mississippi on the Move podcast, as I said to Brother Kenneth earlier, that wherever we need to be, we're mobile. We can get mobile,
Okay.
and we want to be a part of this. And he's working on his project, and we're all working together, making an effort to end the kind of injustices that we see with unfairness in sentencing and improve the life outcomes of our young people. So you have a new partner.
Thank
Abdul
you.
Shaheed Muhammad and Brother Kenneth Muhammad and Mississippi on the Move. We got time for one more. We got another person to get in. Let's get him in. Come on, sir.
Yeah, come on out from behind the sycamore tree.
We control this, so we can do that.
Yes. Now sitting down, share a few words and give us his particular piece of this fantastic thing. He's a brother that I'm familiar with. He's a force to be reckoned with in and of his own self. Sitting with us here on Mississippi The Move is Brother Jeremy White. Brother Jeremy, introduce yourself and tell the listening audience a little about what you do.
So I'm Jeremy White, and I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I went to prison when I was 19 years old. I did 22 years in the Tennessee Department of Corrections. I got out 15 months ago, and since being out, partnered with Participatory Defense, worked with Free Hearts, partnered with Tennessee Higher Education and Prison Initiative. I work with Dr. William Arnold in the Office of Reentry in Nashville, and it is my goal to make sure that the voices of individuals who are justice impacted and justice involved, formerly incarcerated, that their voices are heard, not just in the Cordell Hall building, but everywhere across the state of Tennessee.
Yes, you said a whole lot. And but dealing with the facts, and you mentioned that you are basically newly released, 15 months. I want to ask you, because it's been only 15 months, what have been some of the challenges And then what have been some of the victories that you've encountered since you came out?
I would say that the biggest challenge is I can't find housing, and I'm a white man. Number two, the biggest challenge is when you're going into a room with a lot of center-right people and you're trying to express to them the significance of change, and you're trying to say what you're saying has substance to it when you want to discuss criminal justice reform, but what you're putting on paper don't have balance to it. It's not real equity in the legislation that's being put on paper. And when I get opportunities to go into the room and be able to speak, I'm trying to bring balance to topics similar to what Don was saying about the criminal responsibility laws, about the life sentences, about full voting restoration rights, and legislation that's really going to push criminal justice reform to make the state of Tennessee the greatest state when it comes to state reform and how we can effectuate change in the state of Tennessee.
Yes. And the victory, accomplishments?
So the biggest victories that we've seen, and I'll just say I get to graduate Monday. Shout out.
That's what I want you to say.
So I graduate from Nashville State Community College. That's my biggest victory, but I will say this. The second biggest victory is being with a group of women, formerly incarcerated women, African-American women specifically, that wrapped their arms around me and embraced me when I got out. And not just that, the victory of having individuals that can communicate with you and that can love you and that can see you where you are and can say, look, we want to help you. We want to show you how to communicate better. We want to show you. Those are victories for me because it shows me that individuals still cared about me. And so when I know that I have individuals around me that care about my well-being, I know when I stand up and I am that voice, that I got somebody to fall back on. That's a victory for me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm sitting over here beaming because we know, in case the audience, they don't know, but we got a history.
We do.
You know, we've been together, back in the day. You be like, hey, Brother X, let me, talk to you. I be like, man, who's this white boy trying to act like he conscious? but then I was like, hey, I said, hey, he legit. So when we formed a bond, and I remember they had kicked me out of 2 prisons, and I ended up bumping into you at Whiteville.
Right.
And then we were just looking at, I was like, man, this place is atrocious.
It is.
And then I found one piece of paper, and they got me up out of there so quick. But I remember you coined the phrase, hey, Brother X, man, you the people's champ. I was like, I said, okay, coming from you, that's good. So, man, seeing you and you doing well, and the thing that you mentioned is that sometimes you get out and you don't have anyone to relate to.
Right.
And that's why what you're doing and linking up with the right group, man, participatory defense, free hearts. And when I was just looking on the web page and then I saw you, I said, man, Jeremy rolling with them. I said, man, it got to be something to it. And when I met Sister Dawn, and then I was just like, oh, no, this is something different. This is a whole nother level. And if you got an issue and they take up your issue,
the bump down is real.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah, y'all rode. Yeah, you rode. They rode deep, y'all. I'm just gonna keep it 100. They rode deep, and that's beautiful, man. I'm proud of you. And it's a testament of what real reform looks like. And so the documentary entitled "A Redeemable Son," because society says pretty much that we were irredeemable. They lock us up, throw away the key. And like I said, I was 18 months prior to them implementing that law, so I just missed it. And if I'd have been 18 months later, I wouldn't be here on the podcast with you. I wouldn't have met Sister Dawn. I wouldn't be right here. I'd be, me and Quinton probably be sitting on the bunk talking about what we, hope we can do.
Right.
And so that's why this story is important. The child that came in is not the man that's sitting there today. Justice is not being served. It is not. It is not being served. And I guarantee you, if we can continue down this road and get this legislation changed, because Amy Wyrick, yes,
That's the call to arms.
Call to pray. Yeah, that's the call to arms. You got to pray.
Sorry, I got to have that.
Yeah.
Praying man.
But as I was saying, with Amy Wyrick on her way out, got that little legislation linked up, so the brothers, that thought they may have some kind of hope getting it down from 51 to 25, she closed that. And I talked to some men, and they're different now because they're like, man, it's hopeless. And that's what they want to do. They want to take hope from all the individuals in there. So that's why this is so important. We got to keep pushing. We got to keep bumping down on who we need to bump down.
Right.
And those of us who are listening and have not yet lost their humanity, you need to come on board. So I appreciate your time. Man, you're looking fabulous.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
The one thing that rings true about the African-American men in Memphis is that when the males in Memphis stand up as a collective, justice impacted, justice involved, as a community in its entirety, the change that can be effectuated statewide will be such a power that when Dawn speaks about that, when we speak about the representation from Memphis, it's really the strongest representation in the state, in my opinion, not just because I'm a Memphian, but because I did 22 years and I did it with men who I know can empower other men. And when you come into Nashville and you see the room, and my business partner, when we went to the Cordell Hull building, the first thing he said was, "Don't nobody in here look like me." And it's hard when you come into a room and you got a room full of women that are standing up, but we don't have male representation. And we need male representation and real, authentic, genuine representation of men that can come in and be voices and can be powerhouses and can come in and project that kind of change, because once the individuals in Nashville start to see this, it's going to do something bigger than we've ever seen. And I tell Don about it all the time. And I just really hope that the men in Memphis, the community of Memphis, that at some point that they'll recognize that what they did in 1994 and 95 with the no deals policy, with the 94 crime bill, with implementing violent offense statutes, which really was what made up core civic, because that's when men in Memphis made up 60% of the prison population. Their corporations were built off the back of black men in Memphis, period, end of statement. So if we look forward, we don't need to continue to engage with these corporations. We need to build a collective, and we need to move, and we need to move now.
Question. You sparked something in me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, brother. He keeps me straight. What about now? Can we start that now, and how? Because, see, I'm being educated now because your experience, I've done prison reform ministry for over 25 years now with the Nation of Islam. And as soon as I saw this brother, when he was released, I pulled him in close, and he's shown me even more. But what you stated is something that's been burning in my heart for years, Brother Jeremy, in terms of getting men, particularly us black men, involved. Because I too have seen the state legislature, and I look and see, I didn't see nobody that looks like me. How do we start that now, getting the collective of men involved in what you just stated?
So my first response to that would be to support the African-American women that are pillars and stewards of movements statewide. And we can speak about participatory defense. We can speak about Free Hearts. We can speak about No Exceptions. We can speak about all the organizations statewide. And I'll tell you, when I'm in these rooms, the first thing that they say is, "Where are the men at?"
Excuse me.
And so to start that is to communicate with these women, to be a part of what the women have going on. Because one thing about it, the women are going to come out and do their job. They're going to stand up. They've been standing up. You know, when I literally got out of prison and saw what was going on, and I went on behalf of Octavia, which, you know,
Right,
Octavia
right.
is still doing time.
Yes.
And when I went in front of the parole board and I met Dawn for the first time, I realized that was that moment. It was an intersection. And I said to myself, well, I don't see no black men. There was it was far and few between. And then when I came home to Memphis and I was seeing some of the black men that was involved, and I was saying, well, what exactly are these men doing to help effectuate change, and how are they supporting these women? I didn't see nothing. So to your point, the second thing is that it's just not about getting involved. Because when we think about Memphis, when we think about what the perpetual systems of oppression have continued to do in Memphis alone, even when I've spoke, I have to tell the individuals who whitewash Nashville that if we want to go back and look at evidence-based information, we can go all the way back to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in Memphis. When we talk about systems of oppression and how they've continued to perpetuate those systems. And if you want to dismantle it, the best way to dismantle that is together.
That's right.
That's just
That's
my
straight.
input.
Yeah, that's straight. That's good. That's good. Well, like I say, Brother Jeremy, man, you know, you said a lot in a short period of time. And so that's what we need to do, those who are listening, especially, you know, the brothers. Let's get behind the sisters. And then the sisters are going to step aside because they've been waiting. It's a heavy load. And so once you show up and get your training, come in. Don't come in like a boss. Come in like a student. Come in humble, study, be an apprentice. And then when they say, okay, y'all go ahead and run it, and it's going to take off. Man, it's good to see you. And it's not going to be the last time. We know we started back talking more regular. And, man, continue doing what you're doing, man, because you're a beacon, a hope for brothers that's keeping up with what you're doing, man. And, again, man, I'm proud of you, man. And God bless you.
It's great seeing you, Brother X.
Oh, man.
And I love you, and I appreciate everything y'all doing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're right.
That was Jeremy White getting in here.
Wow. I just wanted to be a fly on the wall to hear the conversation. That certainly deserved a round of applause. We want to thank all of you for being on our humble podcast. Thank you, Brother Kenneth. Wonderful job interviewing them, which I thought was appropriate. He has history with them. Brothers and sisters, you're still listening to the Mississippi on the Move podcast. I know we are beyond our regular scheduled off the air time, but we wanted to make sure that we got these important people in with this important information and message. And we are certainly thankful to our listening audience for staying on with us tonight. And I'll make sure, sister, I send you those pictures. Thank you all. They are leaving the room. Brother Kenneth is escorting them out. And let's give them another round of applause. We certainly appreciate them for coming on the Mississippi on the Move podcast. Brothers and sisters, that's really going to do it for tonight's broadcast. We thank you all for tuning in to the Mississippi on the Move podcast. And as Brother Kenneth is entertaining the guests that he certainly has history with, people that have helped him along the way, I am so happy to be a part of what I just witnessed. And this replay will be made available on our website, on Mississippi on the Move website. Make sure you go back and listen and tell a friend, tell another friend. If you missed it, you missed an excellent on-location program with some excellent guests giving some very, very powerful information. So I'm going to land this plane. I'm your brother Abdul Shahid Muhammad. I'm going to go ahead and land the plane solo without Brother Kenneth. He is out with our guests, and we want to thank you once again for tuning in, and we leave you as we came before you always with the greeting words of peace, and we say it in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum.
Mississippi on the move.
Let's go. Deep in the delta where the willows grow, in the soil stained by the blood of my ancestors. Punch bowl voices call out to my soul for justice. The wicked will reap what they've sown. Spirit of Aziz is back on the rise. Soldiers in the delta kept it alive. Time to stand up, take our place in the sun. Understand the time and what must be done.
Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi, sip.
Gotta make a move and take control. Have something we can call our own. So shine your light, help the people see that now is the time for us to be free. And if you waiting on the pie in the sky, you better wake up fast. They told you a lie, cause big fields await the wide awake man. Elijah's got the master plan.
Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi, Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi, sip. Injustice, we've had enough. All of our divisions we're breaking up. Destiny has been calling us. The spirit of the Most High is guiding us.
See, the time is now. What you waiting on? Quit shooting your brothers. Put your gun down. Come on. They got a cage waiting for you if you keep that up. Early graves coming to you. From that, can't raise you up. Now, Sister Ida B and Fannie Lou, check them out and you'll know what to do. But if you really want your enemy to be alarmed, read the final call. Follow Farrakhan.
Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi, Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi, sip. Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi, on the move. Mississippi, Mississippi, Mississippi on the